Welcome back to part 2 of The Guilty Feminist. So plug in and get ready for the fun.
Can I ask, did anybody have a coven? We had a coven backstage, didn't we, Michelle?
We did. We bled a shook. And did we? I don't know what was going on over in the corner. No, it's just, sorry, I got that wrong. No, I had some sushi. Oh my God, I get those two things mixed up all the time.
Yeah, we did. We had a love-in backstage because we
did.
really all enjoyed the first act.
Totally.
We had such a good time, and we were all like watching each other's work from the wings. And both of us started crying when Grace started playing that melancholy tune.
Yeah.
I think we were both having a Cal moment at exactly the same time. I think she visited us, you know.
I totally feel it. So I haven't mentioned this, but when Cal died and we organised a memorial for her in Auckland, I went shopping. My response to hard things is always to buy something to wear. And one time a doctor said, "You need a hysterectomy," and I said, "I'll get some nice pajamas." And so I went shopping with Cal's eyes, if you know what I mean. What would Cal, if she was here, what would she? And I found this dress, which I feel is a very Cal dress.
So Cal.
Yeah.
And I do get a great Cal energy from you. Grace was saying that as well. Grace said, "She's very like Cal, isn't she?" And I was like, yeah, she
Cal's
is.
much nicer than me.
Cal's much nicer than everybody.
She wouldn't have been so mean to Josh.
No, she would have done a little like teasing, but she was just an extraordinary person.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I do feel like she's with us.
Totally.
Can I ask, did anybody get a coven together? Meet anybody? Get anyone to buy them a drink? Anything in the interval? Who met anybody? Just give us a cheer. Yes? Are you like British people? I had a feeling that you were going to be more like warm and open. When I come to New Zealand, I always think, oh, everyone's so lovely, and like they'll say hello in the street if they know the show, and they're just very warm and open, and it's not at all like London. The weather's like London here. Has that infected you, Christchurch? Just give us a cheer if you met anybody you didn't know or caught up with someone that you do know and you went, oh my God, you're here too. Give us a cheer. There you go. Oh, I see what's happened. All the feminists in Christchurch already know each other. So there was no opportunity for anybody to meet a new person. They were like, yay, the usual suspects, you. Worked with you, protested with you, marched with you, raised money with you, helped you get elected as MP. Yeah. Babysat your kids.
Is there anyone in the room who has not met someone in the room? That's what we're asking.
Point to someone you don't know. Point to someone you don't know. Oh, you're pointing to somebody next to you. Oh, that's what you could have a chat now.
Oh, look at
Oh, this is beautiful.
Oh, that's adorable.
No, we have to stand up for this. This is absolutely beautiful. Did anybody who bumped into someone they knew? Yes. Who did you meet?
This is the lovely Michelle who comes to Hokitika on the West Coast every now and again. And I just wanted to say that we're not all from Christchurch or Otautahi, because there's one show in the South Island and there's at least 3 of us from the West Coast. Well, we could have had a West Coast coven.
Oh, very good. Oh, we should have asked that. Who is from not Christchurch? Oh, wow. Where else should we be visiting?
Nelson!
Where?
Nelson!
Nelson. Where? Dunedin. Okay, Dunedin. Okay. Oh.
Oh, no, you're just shouting random towns, man. None of that's real.
Oh, okay. Is anybody I physically know? Like, not physically know.
Do you mean biblically?
Yeah, no. Anyone else meet anybody that they didn't know or knew before and have reopened a coven? Any other covens? Yes. You accidentally formed a coven outside trying to look at the aurora lights. Oh, that's really lovely. And what will that coven go on to do? Just look at more lights. Just the connection of knowing each other. Anybody else? Anybody else got anything going on that they need help with? Yes? What was yours?
We've started a coven of going to Grace Petrie's show in Dunedin.
Oh, you started a coven of going to Grace Petrie's show in Dunedin.
All right.
Oh my God.
Do you have a token man in your group. That's nice. It's nice to just let one of them have a turn. Just sometimes, not often.
That's fantastic. So there's a coven of people. Grace, is Grace there? There's a coven of people coming to your show in Dunedin. When's your show in Dunedin? October. Are you doing a show in Christchurch as well? So maybe encourage some friends in Dunedin. Are you doing shows elsewhere, Grace? Yeah. Okay, go on. Do
I was going to say this in my set. Stay tuned. I'll tell you later.
Grace is going to tell you later if she's coming near you. That sounds wrong. Grace is a massive feminist. I'm sure she always informs people if she's coming near them. She's very big on consent. Do you have to say if you're coming near somebody? I don't know. It's sort of like... Maybe, I guess, if you've got thin walls. I don't know. It's sort of like... Near. Yeah. All right. Are we ready for our guests? We've got some amazing guests. And they live here. There are so many incredible women in your area. That's... Hold on. Was somebody laughed very hard at that? Because I know what you were thinking then. And it's not what I meant. But the person, I can see your face, basically filled that in with, there are women in your area.
Is it because...
No, it's because that's a porn thing. They say, women in your area, wanting to meet up or something. I don't know what they really say. I only know the Sarah Pascoe joke version of it, which is she thinks that if you have those pop-ups that should have a picture of your partner should come up over it, and it should say, there are women in your area waiting for you to put the bins out. So I understand the joke, but to be honest, I don't know what the OG is. What does it say? Women in your area ready for what? They want to talk to you or something?
None of these people know anything about porn.
Some of you must watch porn. There's a whole sex positive thing about porn.
But it's just very cold here, and they just stick with the people who are really
Are there any men in the audience, straight men who watch porn, who can tell me what that's... Josh, have you ever watched porn?
This is your big moment.
Listen, we need some consultancy. Josh, have you ever watched porn? And if so, do you know what those pop-ups are? We're women in your area, blank, 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 blank. What? Your spam folder. Oh, okay.
Spam.
So when they spammed you with this, what did it say? This spam you never wanted, yeah?
It said something like, single women in your area
Ready to hook up. Okay.
See, in Hokitika, that just means go fishing.
Ah.
It does, eh? It's like...
All right, we're ready to welcome our guests. Okay. This sofa is so comfy if you're watching TV. But if you're on stage, it does put you in a bit of a... It looks a bit like... These people have paid good money for a ticket, and I feel like... Guys, it's like I'm watching you. Do you know what I mean? It's like... double screening. Also, it's like it's the way it happens, like my knickers roll down. My knickers, because I'm not, I can't be the only one in the room who doesn't have a six-pack. Because gives a... They are not. I can...
I don't know what I'm talking about.
No. Yeah, it does feel... Does it look like that? Are you thinking? See, I was hoping I got away with it. So did you see a couple of times I've gone to the edge? And I've got, Anyway, look, our poor guests, they're probably thinking, fuck, when's she going to bring us on? Because you get... Not for any reason except that I've said a couple of times I'm going to bring the guests on. So if I were with me, I'd be in the back saying, right, great, it's my moment. Oh no, she's talking again. Our first guest today is a feminist author and former Green MP who helped establish women's liberation in
You did it really well before.
No.
You've got it.
Aotearoa. Tear.
Like tear.
Tear.
Aotearoa.
It's
pretty good.
Okay. Who helped us... Okay, I'm starting again. Our first guest today is a feminist author and former Green MP who helped establish women's liberation in Aotearoa. She has been a passionate feminist ever since. She has written 7 books. Now, I'm just finishing my 2nd book, and can I tell you, there won't be 7. It's so difficult to write a non-fiction book, I can't even. The next book I write is going to be fiction, because no one can say you were wrong. Including her recent memoir, and I've started reading this, it's so good, 50 Years a Feminist. She is a local, and I would say national icon.
She's a national treasure.
A national treasure, a national icon, and very important part of the global women's liberation movement, who is still fizzingly active in feminism. Put your hands together and make incredible woohooing noises for the wonderful Sue Kedgley!
Curtsy from over here.
I feel like an ancient historical figure.
No, not at all, not at all. But you are somebody who has been involved in feminism since 1971.
That's right.
53
More
years.
than half a century.
And I mean, a lot of people in this audience not only weren't born in 1971, they were born in probably like the 90s or the noughties, and for them, that's an historical era. And that's, you know, let's be honest, a bit annoying. But I think sometimes young feminists don't realise how bad it was, and they also don't realise what second wave feminists fought for. They're like the suffragettes, something in the middle, and then it all started in 2012. And you did a lot. Can you tell us something about the landscape then, Sue?
Well, back in 1971, it was grim. Now, I don't want to sort of lower the hilarity of the evening, but it was, back in 1970, it was a man's world. Everything revolved around men. And every position of authority in New Zealand was a man. And women's role was very specific, really. It was to be a sort of servant class to the male population. And so many women were depressed back then that a psychiatrist, brilliant psychiatrist, Dr. Fraser MacDonald, he coined this phrase, suburban neurosis, to describe the thousands of women, including many he treated, that they were living isolated, alone in the suburbs, no support, no childcare, many of them no cars, even they couldn't, no transport.
No DPB.
No support. There was no DPB, no Domestic Purposes Act. Oh, at that time too, there was no rape crisis centre, nothing hardly any childcare. So it was really a terrible time to be a woman.
And women hardly had any legal standing. Like a woman couldn't apply for a mortgage or a loan or a hire purchase agreement on a fridge. It was, all of those things had to be signed by...
Women couldn't get a pension if they were... Well, and also they couldn't... It was almost impossible to leave a relationship because there was no financial support. If they had a house, they couldn't get a share in it. So, and basically it was accepted almost as if it was a fact of life that men were superior to women. And so, for example, when you were looking at that bit in the book, do you want to read it or shall I tell the story?
I'll read it and then you can tell us what happened then. Okay. So this is from 50 Years of Feminist by Sue Kedgley. You should buy it. So this is at a time that you were working for Checkpoint, which is a half-hour current affairs program broadcast each night after the 9 p.m. news bulletin.
And still today.
It's still on. Okay, so if you're listening internationally, this is a show in New Zealand that's
on public radio.
On public radio, a political show. And you were working as a researcher. And this is now me reading from the book. Initially, I was only too willing to spend my days researching for this interesting group of men and helping them prepare interviews and stories. But after a while, I began to tire of traipsing back and forth to the NZBC library, preparing background material for interviews the men would conduct. I began to think it would be more interesting and certainly more fun if I were able to ask some of the questions myself. After some time, I approached Ken Funnell, Checkpoint's editor, to ask if there was any chance of becoming a reporter. Ken was deeply shocked by the suggestion. Absolutely not, he said. Women's voices were not deep or authoritative enough, so there was no way a woman could hope to be a news or current affairs presenter or reporter, although there were some slots in the provinces for shopping reporters, he conceded. I considered myself to be as qualified as any of the 4 male reporters, so his rejection was deflating.
And you won't be surprised to know I left Checkpoint shortly thereafter.
Yeah. So there was,
but that was completely normal.
So
I mean,
were
no
there
one
no
even
women
questioned it.
Newsreaders?
No, there were no women on television at that time.
There was a very clear rule that women couldn't read the news because they lacked authority. They could possibly do the weather on the radio because nobody believed the weather anyway. And women were allowed to do continuity on television eventually, but nothing with any kind of meaning or gravitas to it.
So they could do the bit that said, next on BBC.
TV1. We're like that.
But
We've got a
pleased
North
to
Island
say
and a South
that
Island.
once the women's liberation movement got going, and then a fantastic group of women called Media Women challenged all of this, and slowly but surely women began to be able to be reporters and directors. But it took decades and decades.
In 71, when you started a women's group at Auckland University, you must have done some pretty outrageous things to get attention, right?
Yeah, well, actually, I mean, we did. We did things like we would liberate a male bar, as if we even wanted to, but it was just something
Can
to
we
do.
just explain? Liberate a male bar means...
Where people drank.
Right.
Men
So it was
drank.
a men's-only bar?
It was a men's-only bar. Well, only men were able to drink in bars in New Zealand. So we decided to
In all
liberate a bar.
bars?
Yes.
In all bars throughout, in New Zealand.
Only men were allowed into, any bar?
Yes.
What, just like a wine bar?
Yes.
There
Well, there
wasn't.
were.
I
There wasn't
don't-
any
well, I
wine.
don't think there were wine bars.
There were no wine bars in this landscape?
No,
okay.
not then.
So it was 1971, and if I'd come here in 1971, and I'd said, we're wandering around Christchurch, so is there someone said, is there a nice wine bar around here? They would have said, no, we don't do them.
I did explain it was pretty grim back then. But anyway, that's the incredible that we did. We had a mock funeral procession to mourn the lack of progress. We did lots of these sort of things. But the amazing thing is, really, we didn't need to do much because everything we said was considered shocking and outrageous. And I remember, for example, we were talking at a very, sober group of men in I think it was either the Auckland Rotarians or the Lions. We were chatting. Suddenly we're being showered by condoms, by men who were expressing their outrage at what we were saying. So I remember a New Zealand Herald, most of the media, they either completely ignored us or they ridiculed us, said we were just a bunch of miserable man-hating lesbians with chips on our shoulders. But the New Zealand Herald went so far, they said, they're like a sort of female Viet Cong trying to arouse suburban housewives to rise up and dominate their men. That was the reaction.
And you
back
said,
then.
nailed it.
And there's a few fans of that idea interestingly. I did hear a woohoo for miserable men-hating lesbians, so that was nice.
Yeah, and the first time a woman acknowledged that she was a lesbian publicly, a magnificent woman, Wahine Toa Nahuia Tiawa Kotuku, and she stood up. We were being interviewed on a current affairs program, and she said that she was a sapphic woman, and that was the first time someone had stood up and said proudly, "I am a lesbian," and that created more shockwaves around the nation.
Wow. So what did you do? Like, what did you win? And I think this is what we need at the moment. We need hope and we need encouragement. What did you get? Because you really broke barriers. Like, there's a lot of things that we take for granted, like I can go and get a credit card or a loan, or I can apply for a job as a journalist. I might not get it, but I can apply for it. You know, we wouldn't think now, oh, well, that would rule me out. I would assume there'd be a certain amount of female presenters on the television. It wouldn't. So there's so much that you got.
Probably.
How did you get it, and what are you most proud of getting? What do you remember getting?
Well, I think probably the most important thing is changing the whole way that society viewed women and changing attitudes. Then, of course, more and more women went into Parliament and laws were passed. I mean, at that stage, of course, it was rape was a taboo subject, and it was perfectly legal for a man to rape his wife. So we started changing all the laws, removing all institutional discrimination against women, which was embedded in every aspect of New Zealand life. And but you know, it's decades. I mean, it's been a long, hard slog, if we think about it, half a century. And it's waxed and waned, you know. And every generation of feminists really redefines what feminism is. And you know, I am so thrilled to see the young feminists today redefining feminism. I mean, in our day, we were very judgy, you know, about wearing high-heeled shoes and that. And
if you're listening at home, Sue Kedgley is pointing at my shoes.
This looked very disapprovingly as a sort of symbol of women's oppression.
Yes. Yeah.
But you know, hey, isn't it great? You've redefined what it means
And
to
now
be a
it's
feminist.
expression.
And what is relevant, and of course, feminism is so much more diverse. So I think it's what I am thrilled to have been part of a movement that has benefited women in just so many ways, and that each generation is reinventing feminism for themselves. And I really salute the young women who are spearheading feminism today, and it's wonderful I would love to be able to sit back and just put my feet up. But unfortunately...
And no one would blame you, Sue, but you're not doing that.
No, I'm
You're involved in a campaign to counter online misogyny. Can you tell us about that?
Well, it's sort of this online misogyny. It's taken a while to work out just how pernicious this online misogyny is, because it's a sort of almost like an underworld. But what it is, and it's taken me a while to come to grips with, it's this networks of men, the so-called manosphere, all over the world, who are basically that they blame women, and particularly feminism, for everything that is wrong with their lives. And you've all heard of incels, involuntary celibates. Oh, yeah. So they say, well, if women won't have sex with us, which is what the incels are all united by their inability to seemingly to find women to have sex with them, then we are justified in raping women. And a lot, they talk openly about how to rape women, how to get away with it. They promote the rape culture. And these ideas are spreading like wildfire all over the internet. And they're targeting young men and young boys and young men in schools. But also, of course, their aim, they say feminism is a cancer. Our aim is to make women subordinate to men once again. And so they're targeting particularly public women like yourselves, but particularly women MPs. They're trying to silence them, to intimidate them. And so there's this vicious, well, you were talking about what you receive, Michelle, on your social media.
Which is pretty mild in comparison with, you know, I think here in New Zealand we have seen in the last few years the violence, the violent rhetoric that is thrown at women like Jacinda Ardern and other women in government, and how terrifying that is. It's at a level. Am I right about this? I feel we've never seen it like this before.
And it's almost normalising and legitimising violence against women all over again. And it's like girls are growing up thinking, oh, well, this is normal. This is what I have to put up with, this continual abuse and harassment on the internet. So, I that's why we're campaigning about this. And by the way, if someone talked about, how to get away with rape in mainstream media, they'd be taken to the courts. But on social media, they can say it with impunity because there's effectively no regulation whatsoever. And so this has become the new frontier for the expression of violence. And I think it's a huge issue. And so I've sort of rather grudgingly become active all over again.
Can I ask you, looking back over half a century of feminism, what are some of the lessons that you've learned? We need you to impart wisdom. I already feel you're going to be a very important Obi-Wan Kenobi in my life. What lessons have you learned?
Well, look, there are so many lessons, I guess. It's a long, hard slog, changing these deep-seated patriarchal attitudes, which, let's face it, have been around for centuries. And movements for social change, they wax and wane. So you can't continually sustain that momentum. I actually think one of the biggest problems is that we women, we have challenged the female stereotypes. We've reinvented what it means to be a woman. Books are filled where we're writing and thinking and changing what it means to be a woman. Meantime, men have stood still. So if one sex changes and the other stands still, then the relationship between the sexes gets out of sync. And I think that is what has happened. And I think it is men's turn to change now. All these half a century later, men, barely any men, are really equally in the home. Parental leave, only about 3% of men even take parental leave. So women all over the world are doing 3 times the caregiving of any man. So I think that is holding us back. Men need to change, and we need to, demand. They should be leading this campaign against violence against women.
Totally, Sue. Back in the day, you fabulous women in the 70s talked about consciousness raising, where you would get together in groups and change your ideas, grow your...
Where's the men's movement? Let's get the men together. Instead of which, we've got this manosphere with men just trying to turn the clock back and make us... They think that equality will undermine and destroy them. And so that's the serious issue, I think.
Josh, we've got a job for you.
Yeah.
Any men here?
We need you to start a movement for men, but a positive one. And some men I've had on the show in the past, or I know they are trying, but it's very small pockets. It is, and I think fighting, there's always a stronger fight for change than there is for the status quo. And if things are listen, there are many men who have much worse lives than me around the world, and in this country and in my own city, it is absolutely not clear to that. It's not a gendered line of, everything's great for men and everything's terrible for women, everything's terrible for women, at all. However, where your gender either pushes you forward or holds you back, wherever you are in the world, it gives you access to something that it doesn't. It's hard to fight for that change. It's hard to get out of a boat of privilege. And the way that I equate this, Sue, is, that maritime rule, women and children first?
Yeah.
What it means is, if I were out in a boat off the coast of New Zealand because there was a flood or something like that, and suddenly we're all in dinghies, the boat we're in is sinking and there's only so much room in the next dinghy, then any man would be expected to get out and I would get a seat in the dinghy. That's what would happen. That man could be 19
I'm not sure it would happen, but anyway, that was the theory.
Well, but I know a lot of refugees, and it does happen, that there's just a women and children first mentality that a man must get out of that boat, even if he's going to drown. And why is that? Why is that a thing? If a young man is 18, he's got his whole life ahead of him, he probably weighs less than me, so he's going to weigh the boat down less. Why? I just don't know why that would be the case. And I would say, do you know what? You get in that boat. I would hope. But if it was 3 o'clock in the morning, it was dark, there might be sharks. I can't promise you that I would do that. And I'll be honest, if I did do it, I'd want someone to film it and say, look, she died as she lived of feminism, because that would be seen as a grand gesture on my part. Because why? That spot's mine in our collective consciousness, and I am giving up a seat of privilege. I'm giving up. It's hard to give up your seat in a boat of privilege. It's hard. And it's hard for men to go, I'll be the one to get out. I'll be the one to get off this board so a woman can get on it. I'll be the one to step back from this and invite a woman in. It's hard to when the status quo is on your side, why the fuck are you fighting to change it? And it's only when we realise it's better for all of us, that things are going to change.
Absolutely.
Of course, it could be like in the Titanic where there's actually room for both of you.
Yes. I did have a comedian on once who said it was a bit of a white woman move.
Yeah.
Anyway, we have to, with having made these sweeping generalisations about men failing to change, we do have to quickly add there are numerous men, including young men.
Not all men.
Who are actually embracing equality and sharing and bringing up children, and so that instead of women
some men have a secret family and are bringing up 2 lots of children, so that's good. Listen, and those men are, feminism comes in extraordinary packages sometimes. I'm kidding, of course, but I do feel like it is true. Like, I know so many wonderful, wonderful, wonderful men, and I just feel like you're right. It's about movements. It's about support. Connecting the dots. It's about standing in arms together and pushing forward. And I feel like the terrible things that we're seeing in the world at the moment, this is a backlash. Roe versus Wade being overturned, it's a backlash.
Yeah.
Because the women of the world came out and marched and stood shoulder to shoulder and said, Me Too, that's enough. We're asking for more. We're demanding more. And the punishment for that is the empire striking back.
Absolutely.
To me, as it's horrific, it's making people suffer. There's nothing worse. And in addition, it shows that we are making progress and they are scared. They don't make moves like this when we are not moving forward with power and progress. It's a sign they're scared, and we have to rise up again, more, in greater numbers, more often.
I'm afraid that's true. Call to arms.
Sue, I want to bring on our next guest.
Yes.
Is there anything you came to say that you didn't get to say? You're still in the next conversation, but on your topic, I don't want you to leave the show feeling like, that's the thing I most wanted to say.
It's been an incredible privilege to be on your show, of having admired you, Deborah, and read your books. So nothing else I need to say, apart from, in a way, despite everything, and despite the horror of the world in which we live, it is still, historically, when you look back, one of the better times to be a woman. So the solidarity, for all of the negativity, I still think it is a great time to be a woman, and we should celebrate it.
Absolutely. And certainly in our part of the world, there's opportunity, and I know there's some parts of the world where it's never been worse, but I feel like if we're in a part of the world where we do have access and opportunity, choices, we need to get out there and exercise them and fight for women who don't have that, and some women don't have it in our local area. So women in our local area, I've got to stop saying that. Do you have an I'm a feminist butt?
Oh, yes. I'm a feminist, and 53 years I've been a feminist, and I've been to all these, self-defence courses and all that, and I should feel safe walking in our streets at night, but I don't. And so what I've had recourse to is basically I walk around with this.
Oh! Oh!
That's fantastic.
Oh. Yeah. Can we, yeah.
Isn't it tragic if we
Yeah.
have to walk around with
Yeah.
something like this?
It's the first time we've had an I'm a Feminist part with a sound effect. Scary.
I'll leave you.
Sue Kedgley, everybody. Our next guest is an author and freelance journalist, originally from Germany, who has reported internationally from New Zealand for 20 years. Over the last decade, she investigated cults in New Zealand and across the world and witnessed the trauma of many former children who were abused at Centrepoint and Gloriavale. Her research and personal experience of coming too close resulted in the incredibly moving and eye-opening bestseller Cult Trip, published by HarperCollins. She is currently organising Decult 2024, the first cult awareness conference in New Zealand, and that is happening here in Christchurch this October. Please welcome to the stage, Anke Richter. Come, take a seat. So, Anke, you've done such an interesting thing. You've just really gone deep dived into cult. What made you want to get into cults?
I don't think I ever wanted to. I kind of fell into it because I met someone who's been a member of a cult here in New Zealand, Centrepoint, former sex and therapy cult, and she told me about this place, and I had never heard about it before, and I was fascinated. And I soon realized this is a really big story. And back then I was going to write a book about her and her experience, which later, long story, fell over and all got too hard and too dark. But no, I wasn't out there looking for cult stories at all. They found me, these stories. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad that you did, because cults are a feminist issue.
100%.
What can you explain and unpack for the audience why they're a feminist issue?
Well, just to break it down, most cults are led by men. Not all of them, though, but most.
I'm working on starting one.
I'll join it. I'll come. Yeah.
Oh, you joined it ages ago.
Oh,
Lock
yeah.
the doors.
Yeah.
You can join the likes of Tia Swan and Nicole Dedone from...
How many cults have been started by women?
Now you're putting me on the spot. But it's not even that there is an official number how many cults there are in the world or even in New Zealand. But most of them are led by men and most members are women. So that's already, something to think about.
So most people who join cults are women and most cult leaders are men.
Actually, people don't join cults. Did you know that? They always join something that doesn't look like a cult to them. That looks good. That's a great
A commune,
movement,
a
church, a club,
a community,
a
they're
training
looking for
program, a
something.
self-help program, a festival, a workshop. No one first of all, nothing has ever advertised itself as a cult, so you can't officially join the cult anyway. Because, they always join something that's been misrepresented, and then it turns out not to be as great. It's a bit like a relationship where you fall in love with someone, and it turns out to be an abusive narcissist, and you didn't see that coming either.
Yeah.
Very similar dynamics, by the way.
What defines a cult? How do you know that you're in a cult?
It's usually often when you're in a cult, you're the last person to really notice. That's quite unfortunate.
That was certainly my experience.
Yeah.
It took me a while to work
Right.
out. My family became Jehovah's Witnesses. Well, they started studying when I was 14. I got baptized at 16. And I really thought that the end of the world was coming, which, as it turns out, it might be. But I don't think it's the one that they predicted.
Yeah.
They talk about Jehovah bringing Armageddon the whole time. There have been a number of soft launches for Armageddon. Most famously, 1975 was definitely going to be Armageddon. That was obviously before my time, but there's been so many days. It's definitely going to happen before, when I was in it, before the people who were born in 1914 because of some prophecy that they prophesied loads and loads and loads of years as being the end, and they got one date. They hit on one date where something actually happened. The end of the world didn't happen, obviously, but World War I broke out. So they retrofitted that prophecy to mean, we predicted the right year, but we didn't realise it was the beginning of the end. And they ended up saying the way they worked the prophecy was anyone born in 1914, that generation would see the end. And then obviously that would be max out 2014. That would be max out. Like there'd be a few people who are 100, but let's be honest, that generation is gone by that time. And so then they changed the definition of generation. They said generation doesn't mean what we thought it meant. It just means they've had so many different definitions of generation since then. And so it seems extraordinary, because I was bright at school, I was academic, that I could have been seduced by that. But when people say, sometimes people ask me what kind of person joins a cult, and I always say, I think a better question is, at what time in your life are you most vulnerable to joining a cult?
Exactly. Because there isn't even a certain type of person. You could actually say the best qualities in people are the ones that bring them into cults. An open heart, a sense of, community, doing something good for the world, helping others, working selflessly, volunteering, all these wonderful qualities. That's actually what brings people into those groups, and then it gets exploited. So, first of all, people who are in cultic communities, they're not stupid, they're not all uneducated, they're not weak, they're not lost. There's so many stereotypes out there, and I had them too. And I think the people who think of themselves, I'm way too bright to ever be in something like a cult because I would see right through it. They're the ones who are most likely not to see it for what it is. And like you said, everyone can have some kind of vulnerability at some stage in their life. Look at COVID. There was a massive global vulnerability for so many people. And it's interestingly, actually, quite a few people have left cults because of that time, because suddenly of lockdowns or some shift in their daily lives, it's actually helped some people also to come out of that routine of the community they were stuck in. But then again, also we saw so many people falling into, you could say almost like disinformation cults or, cultic beliefs that because of the vulnerability of a sudden change in their lives. And yeah, it's a more common problem than you think. It's not just some weird minorities of people like your parents and yourself. I mean, I just want to really let the world know how cool people are who've been in cults.
That's very much what I'm hoping to be, the poster girl for how cool people can be.
People will join cults just so they can leave them and be like you.
Yeah, that's very much what I'm going for. Can I ask D-Cult, which is the conference, and I hope I can get here for that, but I don't know.
Can I do a shameless?
Yeah.
Boob showing and branding at the same time.
Yes, that's both guilty and feminist. Here's my boob showing. Also, it has important feminist information on it.
You got it. That's how we are.
So D-Cult is a conference about cults, and I hope I can come, but I possibly can't. But if I can, I will.
Zoom you in. We'll zoom you in.
Yeah, I'll zoom in. I'll absolutely zoom into D-Cult if I can't be here in person.
Because we have a panel on the Jehovah's Witnesses. I think the working title is Rock the J-Dubs.
Rock the J-Dubs, absolutely.
You're in, you're so
right
in now.
You have to be there.
I've done JW cult panels before, and they're really good fun.
Yeah.
Have you had any experience with a cult? Have you ever had a brush with a cult?
I've had a wee brush in the family with JWs. I find it interesting that cults, one of the things that seems to be in, two of the things that seem to be in common, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that they quite like to separate people from their extended whānau. So, I find the JW thing of no Christmas, no birthday means that those opportunities for big wide family gatherings are gone.
Oh, it's more than that. If parts of your family are not Jehovah's Witnesses, you should not socialise with them. If they were Jehovah's Witnesses and now not, you must not speak to them. And they very, very recently, I think because of some laws in some countries like Norway, took their charitable status away because they said shunning is cruel, unusual punishment, basically. So they've now said you can call your family members if they're disfellowshipped and say, we'd like you to come to the meeting. And if someone does come to the meeting, you can say a greeting, but no more. So before, they come in, and to get back into the cult, which a lot of people try to get back in, even though they've been shunned and disfellowshipped, you have to sit up at the back of the Kingdom Hall with nobody speaking to you. And someone I spoke to on a cult panel once said that she was a child and her teenage sister had been disfellowshipped and was not living with the family. She was trying to get back in because she missed her family so much. She would come and sit at the back of the meetings, but they're meant to come in late and leave early so that they don't embarrass anyone by bumping into them. And so they would sit at the back, and she said, I would always look around as a little girl to see my sister, because it was the only time I ever got to see her. And my parents would say, look at the front. You remember Lot's wife turned around. And you'll be turned into a pillar of salt. And she said, I just desperately wanted to see her. And it's just so sad. And now they're like, oh no, you can say hello, but don't say anything else. And I'm like, fuck you, that you think, and everyone's going, it's so loving, Jehovah's loving arrangement. I'm like, fuck you. And it's traumatized the XJW community, this, because people are on the groups going, but my dad's just called me for the first time in 10 years. He's never spoken to me, even when I was in hospital, even when my child was rushed to hospital, and now he's going, Jehovah loves you, come back to the meeting, and hanging up. And it's just worse. They fuck with everyone's heads.
Honestly, the suicide rate of people, who've come out of this, the depression, the mental health problems, the risk for addiction, especially for kids who've grown up in these groups. And it's not just the Jehovah's Witnesses, it's also Exclusive Brethren, yeah? It's other fundamentalist Christian groups, Gloriaville, of course. We have a much bigger cult problem here than just the groups that we now know about.
What is it about New Zealand that we have this propensity for cults?
Yeah, what is it about New Zealand? Well, I mean, it's just a theory. Too many sheep.
Too many what?
Sheep. Too many sheep, says Sue. Too many sheep. No, I mean, we have the highest number per capita here of intentional communities in the world. New Zealand's always been a haven, like a magnet, especially in the 70s,
cult magnet.
80s. No, I mean, more for utopian seekers and people coming here setting up hippie communes and fresh start. Always been a place for new beginnings.
It's true. When we talk
and there's
in
a lot of good in
London
there,
about the end of the world, everyone always goes, well, I'll go to New Zealand. Like New Zealand's going to be like, it's the end of the world. Yay. This is what we need, a bunch of fucking Londoners. And going, have you got like a little bunker that I could use? I just want to live in the mountains all of a sudden.
Better than some of we've got all these American billionaires like
Peter
Thiel, building
and building their bunkers.
And Jacinda Ardern banned that, but has your new Prime Minister said, billionaires welcome, bunker up? I haven't really bothered to learn his name.
You don't need to. I just like to explain to people that he looks either like a thumb or a roll-on deodorant. Because that's how he rolls.
Jacinda Ardern is my Prime Minister of New Zealand, and fuck this new guy. But it's interesting that it's a haven for cults. But I understand it. People go, it's fresh air, it's mountain air. How does that though? New beginnings, all of that. But how does that extend to, like, in your book? In fact, could you read your little piece in the book that you were going to read?
Yeah, I wasn't really sure what to pick because a lot of stuff in my book is quite dark and heavy, and a lot of it is, I wouldn't say stories, but experiences of child sexual abuse, because I met so many former women from various groups like Centrepoint and Gloriaville, and each one of them had an absolutely horrendous story. And but there are also some lighter bits in there, because I became a bit of a cult, or even sex cult tourist myself. Over
A sex cult tourist?
Yeah.
What does that mean, Uncle?
Yeah, right.
There are women in your local area.
A tiny bit that gives you an idea what that means.
Oh my God. What does that mean?
So it meant that I was just curious about a lot of groups that are in the, so-called conscious sexuality world these days, where you can do courses.
But consensual?
Like tantric sex, like that, is that...
Yeah, I wanted a tantric sex, but maybe, oh my God, this is I feel a little bit put on the spot now.
No.
But it's
You don't have to read
put it in the
it.
book.
You absolutely don't have to read
I
it.
put it in the book. I shouldn't be shy to talk about it. So
Okay. Are you sure? Do you want to?
Because you said, this is a bit provocative. No, I just give you a little taste of one little endeavour, and that was when I went to...
I feel like this is going to make the Jehovah's Witnesses look really good.
California. Look, I mean, I also went to Osho's Kashram in India, Pune, where the whole Bhagwan Osho movement, Wild Country, you've watched that? Yeah, where they came from.
The God that fled.
Oh, the God that fled.
But when you say sex cult tourist, though, aren't sex cults unconsensual or coercive?
Yes, I mean, a lot of them are
but then
really,
you can't be a tourist somewhere where there's a lack of consent.
I'm really I've said this in a very Not in a very serious way. you
Yeah,
know?
okay.
I mean, I was a semi-professional cult tourist in the sense that I experienced a lot of things for myself because I was curious, and then later I saw the journalistic value in it and also researched some of these groups. So I was sometimes, I mean, the great thing about being a journalist is it gives you a permission to go to places you normally wouldn't go to.
So like Louis Theroux. Like,
Yeah,
you know the way
exactly
Louis
like
Theroux
that.
goes places and
Exactly.
asks questions.
Exactly, and
Yeah.
I'm sure he also goes there because he's curious and you wouldn't
Yeah.
otherwise maybe have access to it.
Okay.
And so one of the places I went to, and this is just a very, very short snippet because I'll leave the big heavy stuff for people who actually want to read culture, but this is just a little sprinkle. In 2017, I spent a week undercover in an Om house in San Francisco. Om, or orgasmic meditation, had taken Silicon Valley by storm. It's a 15-minute mindfulness ritual where a practice partner strokes a woman's genitals in a precise pattern. In 2001, a Californian startup called One Taste began building this trademarked and supposedly revolutionary technique that promises to increase female pleasure. Right? I mean, what's good. What's not to love, right?
Yeah.
I joined them for an introductory weekend session for a German newspaper feature. The women who ran the Om course wore high heels and cocktail dresses, and the male staff sported black t-shirts, bearing the slogan, "Powered by Orgasm." Their sales pitch was aggressive, their charm seductive, and their expertise in all matters erotic impressive. Our clothes stayed on. At night, I slept in a suburban commune of Ommers, a villa with chandeliers and golden taps in the black tile bathrooms. I had my own room, but all the others shared double beds with a flatmate, sometimes on a weekly rotation. It was deliberate so that all your shit comes up, as one young tenant explained to me. She was exhausted from the volunteer work she was doing for One Taste while saving up for an expensive masterclass. The fridge was stocked with kale and the Wi-Fi password was orgasm123.
Wow.
So this gives you a little taste. And again, what's not to love? You know, a movement, a female leader of this cult that promises more sexual pleasure for women and waking them up. Well, fast forward a few years, and this whole group has been investigated by the FBI, and Nicole Stone is in court, and there have been allegations of rape because women, in the end, and it's always the same shit.
So you went thinking, oh, maybe there's something in this. Maybe this is female empowerment. And then maybe there is something interesting about this. And then invariably there's a horrible turn and much more is going on than meets the eye. And there's power abuses.
Yes. Look, it's not about the content. It's actually not about what people do in these groups or what the Jehovah's Witnesses believe or what some female sexual empowerment gurus tell you. That's not actually the problem. It's always the power structure. It's always how the control, the domination, the fervor, the way that people get with the program, and there's nothing else in their lives. And then these lines get blurred and blurred. More and more. When do you turn from a good student to a obsessed follower who then recruits other people and oppresses other people as part of the system? It's such a these groups are all like mini patriarchies, like mini animal farms where things play out that we also have in wider society, but it's like a microcosm of power abuse, of group dynamics that are toxic and destructive.
And it always strikes me in places like Gloriavale and Centrepoint that part of the commune's plan is to increase its numbers, and one of the main ways to increase its numbers is for women to have many, many babies.
Multiply.
And once you take away a woman's right to control her own body and her own fertility, then you're on a very bad road.
Let's just talk about Gloriavale just for a minute here, right? Because it's such a big topic at the moment. And Deborah, I'm not sure how much familiar you are with it. I mean, they've actually been around for decades, but they've come back on the radar again. This group on the West Coast here in New Zealand. Most people in the room would probably know what I'm talking about. But internationally, they've sort of stayed under the radar, and they've always been a bit of a joke almost. But I mean,
it's actually just horrific, the human rights abuses that go on there, the oppression of women. The women are just breeding machines, and like you just said, Michelle, the fact that they're constantly almost in a pregnant state, that they're just slave laborers. And that's been proven in court, that we're allowed to say this here. You know, this has been established in New Zealand courts, in the High Court. It's just horrific what's going on there. And I'm also wondering, I also don't understand why there haven't been stronger feminist voices over the years. Why there haven't been picket lines outside of Gloriavale when they had held their annual concerts every 2 years and people flocked there and it's just all a big show. And maybe it's got to do with them being Christian and religious freedom, and maybe again this assumption of why they chose this lifestyle. But like you just said, most of them in there these days were born into it. They're children. They didn't have a choice, and they come out feeling so lost in the world here. And what do we, what has New Zealand done? One of the most egalitarian places in the world. What have we done in these last decades to help these women in there? It's a massive feminist issue.
Well, listen, everyone should go along to Decult. If you're interested in this and you want to fight this as feminists and you just want to be educated, go to Decult. It's a conference. What are the dates?
Can I tell you a little bit more about it? All right. It's a conference, 2-day conference, first one in New Zealand.
Yes.
19th to 20th of October. It's also live streamed around the world.
Yes.
Tickets go live very soon. Go to decult.net. We'll have amazing international speakers from around the world, and cult survivors and authors and experts and journalists and people from the government and therapists.
And me, very probably on Zoom.
The great thing about, I'm on the mailing list, I get emails from Decult, and the thing I love about it, well, I love it, the content, but also my eye always says declutter, and I think that's right, I must go and tidy the spare room.
Declutter.
So it's just a little
Do you know
job.
that I made this word up, actually? I came up with this word, and now we hope one day it's going to be in the dictionary as a verb.
I'm sure it will.
Actually means,
Buy Cult Trip, go to Decult. Can people zoom into Decult?
Yes, they
You
can.
can live stream Decult.
They can
Excellent.
live stream.
So
They
go
can
to
watch the live stream.
Decult, just Google Decult in New Zealand and you'll see it for sure. Absolutely brilliant. Uncle Richter, thank you so much for joining us. So listen, before we bring on our final and incredible act, can I just have a big round of applause for the wonderful Sue Kedgley, the incredible Uncle Richter, for our wonderful poet, Daisy Lavea-Timo. And my co-pilot, it's our first time together, but it feels like we've worked together for years, the wonderful Michelle Acorte. And just because we didn't get to do it, because we didn't know, for every single time Cal Wilson came to this town and made you laugh, both with The Guilty Feminist and in her solo shows, can we have a big round of applause for the wonderful Cal Wilson? And now to close the show in the way that only she can, put your hands together and welcome back to the stage the wonderful, the one, the only, the Grace Petrie.
Well, how do you fancy singing along? Oh, wow, cool, 12 of us, nice. How do you fancy singing along, Christchurch? This is a song that I wrote actually while we were doing The Guilty Feminist on Zoom during lockdown. And it's a song that I wrote, it's kind of has a sad history. It's about, I wrote it in response to a terrible act of male violence against women in the UK. And I was feeling very I felt the weight of it very heavily, and a lot of my friends did as well at the same time. And I was just listening to Sue talk there, and I think, it's a real kind of important thing, I think, to be a part of that tradition of women fighting for these things that kind of goes on long before we were here and will go on long after we were here. So I wrote a song about that, and it's called The Losing Side.
Common grief to Bristol up in flames. We came here begging justice, and instead we got the blame. The peace disturbed out on the streets tonight. Watching on the BBC, you know something's not right. When mourners come with candles and with flowers, wrestled 3-on-1 and pinned down by the state's full powers. This is their world, and these have been the rules. We have come to break it down with bloody fingernails for tools. This threat of violence, this tightrope wire, we can no longer bear it. We're all too fucking tired. No minute silence, we will sing higher. Don't tell us to light a candle when we have come to start a fire. And if I spend my life on the losing side, you can lay me down, knowing that I tried. There's a better world, and on a quiet day, when I hold my breath, I can hear her say she's on her way. She's on her way. And safe at home, you watch it on TV, and never dream that one day you could be the enemy. You might one day be under attack from all that should protect you, hoping someone has your back. The history books are screaming from the shelves. No government who outlaws speaking to defend ourselves has good things planned. A storm ahead I see, and no one of us will bear it without solidarity. Yeah, I see trouble all my days. This ailing, failing world sends signs of fire and flood and plague, but from the rubble, from the rays, mightiest cathedral, from these ashes we will raise. And if I spend my life on the losing side, you can lay me down, knowing that I tried. There's a better world, and on a quiet day, when I hold my breath, I can hear her say, take heart, my sisters. This fire will never die. And say you are my comrades. No one left behind. Sing it. And if I spend my life on the losing side, you can lay me down, knowing that I tried. There's a better world, and on a quiet day, when I hold my breath, I can hear her say that if I spend my life on the losing side, you can lay me down, knowing that I tried. There's a better world, and on a quiet day, when I hold my breath, I can hear her say that if I spend my life on the losing side, you can lay me down, knowing that I tried. There's a better world, and on a quiet day, when I hold my breath, I can hear her say that she's on her way. Thank you very much.
been listening to The Guilty Feminist with me, Nicola Francis-White, guest co-host Michelle Acorn, and our very special guests Sue Kedgley and Uncle Richter, and Grace Petrie with poetry by Daisy Lavea-Timo. The recording engineer was John Kane. The theme tune was by Mark Hodge. The producer was Tom Salinsky for the Spontaneity Shop. Thanks to Kylie Jackson, Simon the venue manager, everyone at Bone Presents, and everyone at the Aurora Centre, as well as all of you for listening. More information about this and other episodes is at guiltyfeminist.com. D-I-F-U. No, not F-U.
All right, Jesus Christ. Look, I know your opinion of me is lowered somewhat, but can we save it for the green room?
Sorry, I'm kidding. I'm sorry, I meant D-I-F-Y, which is... Oh, no. It's get someone to do it for you. That's what I do. It's really good if you don't fuck it up. But if you say D-I-F-U, it does sound really rather aggressive. And that's not what I meant. Of course, you know how much I love Grace Petrie. But listen, I am also very bad at DIY. I don't think I do short hair or long hair jobs in my house.
The Guilty Feminist is provided exclusively from Acast. Find it wherever you get your podcasts.